Namaste. Namaste Arulji and Namaste Manojji. I'm Kiran Singh, coordinator of Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center at Auroville University in Surat. I welcome you all on the eve of Teachers' Day to the roundtable discussion on integral education and its application in life. It is a day to express gratitude and respect to the Guru, that is, teacher who selflessly works for the future of his or her students. On this auspicious and precious day, I want to take the opportunity to show my gratitude to all my teachers, and I feel doubly happy and honored to have my both teachers of Swadhyaya and Sadhana here with us, with whom I got opportunity to be part of my journey in learning. The mother and Sri Aurobindo commented on the personality traits of successful teacher. According to her, the teacher should have complete self-control under all circumstances. Teacher should strive for self-progress and be medium to enable and to help the child to educate himself, to develop his own intellectual, moral, aesthetic, and practical capacities, and to grow freely as an organic being, not to be kneaded and pressured into a form like inert plastic material. And in this pandemic situation, we have seen and we have been seeing how effectively all teachers have adopted and changed for well-being of their students. I bow to all teachers and show them gratitude on behalf of all the students. Today's New Perspective webinar series on integral and transformation learning is hosted by Auroville University and Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center in Surat and Fountain in South Carolina. New Perspective is a platform for the exploration of diverse perspectives in integral education, social development, integral yoga, art, and culture. Our aim is to facilitate presentation and interaction of different experts and researchers in diverse fields, creating an interdisciplinary and interactive platform where all ideas may find their true place, leading to more harmonious and comprehensive ways of living. Today's topic of integral education explores how to present the concept of integral education in most comprehensive and intelligibly way through interaction and technology. So we are delighted to have between us two prominent speakers, creators and facilitators of courses on self-awareness at Auroville and IIT Madras, Sri Manoj and Sri Arul Devji. I welcome both of you, please. I myself have been privileged to learn from them in their online courses, hence I feel especially honored to introduce them. Manoj is passionate about the evolutionary yoga, psychology, and transformational practice of Sri Aurobindo. He started exploring integral yoga in 1989, right after graduating as a production engineer. He did postgraduate studies in product design from National Institute of Design, NID, Ahmedabad in 1993. After a short period of working as a professional design consultant, he quit the profession and joined Auroville in 1995 to explore integral yoga and collective evolution. He has co-founded Telos with Arul Devji, focusing on integral education based on integral yoga. He also makes 3D motion graphics videos to share the vision and work of Sri Aurobindo through Sopanam. Besides education and filmmaking, he is actively involved in building software for Auroville and loves information technology, its role in building communities, collective self-awareness, and creativity. He enjoys teaching, sharing integral yoga, making videos, designing software. Today, Manoj is going to share with us the emerging new perspectives on education. Education is thought to be composed of primarily the physical space and virtual space. Integral education is based on third space, which is not physical, virtual, but inner, the space of consciousness. A deep understanding of the nature of consciousness is key to the future learning regardless of the space where learning happens. Once we understand the nature of consciousness, we can design learning processes that are online or offline depending on the learning outcome we are envisioning. So what are learning outcomes in terms of consciousness? Manoj will elaborate further in his talk. Our second panelist is Shri Arul Devji, who is visionary in the field of integral education. His mission is to inspire educators and teachers to inculcate inspiring and integral education methodologies in their institutions. He is the guest faculty at IIT Madras for self-awareness and integral Karma Yoga courses. He is also guest faculty for self-awareness and higher goals in education and conducts 5 days teachers course in IIT Madras. He coaches and mentors teachers and students to explore the path of integral education. His specialty is the experiential labs he conducts on integral change, education, and integral development. I have also experienced the same, Arulji. Arul Devji has authored the book Into Great Depth of Your Being and the Flame Within. These shares his practices and explorations into integral yoga. Sri Arul Devji will be talking about integral education relating to building spaces that facilitate the discovery of the core of the child, the uniqueness of their path, inner strengths present, and overcoming challenges that they possess. This would require that teachers and parents develop the capacity to spot the core nature, purpose, and inner configuration of the child with reference to their mental, vital, physical, and spiritual parts of being and its development. This requires that students become familiar with self-awareness, consciousness, parts of being that interface with the self and understand the language of deeper self-guidance. Arulji will share stories and real-life experiences from his work in this space. I would also like to introduce our own Vladimirji, who is a researcher and facilitator of the course in the Vedic and Vedantic studies, Sanskrit language and literature, integral yoga, and Indian philosophy, aligned with various educational institutions such as Auroville University, UH Auroville, Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center in Fountain in South Carolina. Before we begin, I would like to encourage all in the audience to participate today by asking questions. To do that, please type questions in the question box at any time during the talk. We'll keep the track of all the questions and share them at the end of the discussion. With this, I will request Vladimirji to take this roundtable discussion forward. Vladimirji, please.
Kiranji, very much for this introduction, somewhat thorough and very luminous, so we know more about the eminent speakers, what they will present today especially. And we are beginning this seminar or this roundtable discussion on integral education. It's our first entry. And I would like our panelists, our speakers, to address this issue of integral education in the universities, in the higher education, in India and abroad, and for simple people who are working, who are living their lives, how to come to this vision of being integrally educated, what it really implies, what should they do, how they could really find their, so to say, modalities or approaches to their work and to their life, that it could be educational for them also. So it's a very complex issue, and we are beginning the whole series on integral education with these two presentations today, and at the end we will have questions and answer sessions. And please put your questions into question and answer box and not into the chat, because chat is not everybody can see. So at the end the speakers will answer these your questions. So I wanted to start with Arul and come to Manoj after. Do you mind this? That we start with you, Arul? Oh, great. Great. Please, Arul, yes, take the microphone and address the audience with your presentation.
Thank you. And you can just track time as well and indicate to me as needed. Okay.
Great.
So, good evening, good morning. Uh, I'm going to share, say, a 11-year journey and experiment with integral education. I'll set the context for a few minutes, just a few minutes, so that we are aware from where I come from, what I share, and then I'll go into the details of the explorations of consciousness, parts of being, connecting with the deeper self. For about 2 years, me and Manoj, accidentally I met Manoj. We resonated, and then we poured into many of the works of Sri Aurobindo, mainly Letters of the Yoga, and we arrived at the telos model, which goes into the different parts of the being. Around the time, I was lucky enough to meet a professor at IIT Madras who was starting the self-awareness course, 2011, and he invited in. The model was just right, and I found a garden to sow it in. So one of the first things I started doing was I simplified the terminology, made it simple, applicable to the wide world. And from then, from 2011 till now, been experimenting with this work with multiple age groups. I want to set the context on that. I've experimented with students 8 years of age, so somewhere 4th standard and above, till adult education, corporate, institutional heads, etc., etc. So the whole context of what I share is from a perspective of how can we have a lifelong journey of integral education, which means it is not just about the skills, the knowledge, how I live my life, etc., from an external perspective. It is also about how deeply can I connect to the wellspring within. And one of the biggest advantages I had was the work that we did, me and Manoj together, because there was a kind of a map to understand what are the different well springs within and to be able to go within that. And the context of much of what I share are things that I practice. I've tested with almost all these groups, and that's what is present in both the books. So one of the dimensions of consciousness. So before that, the aspect of inner gaze is something that has always been very fascinating to me. Like when I read Savitri, the word gaze comes several times. Now, consciousness exists on its own. So for example, let's take one thing, which is the deeper self, what we refer to as the deeper self, what we refer to as the psychic. Now, what has been described in the ancient traditions as something which is as small, like a small portion of a thumb, which is present deep within. Now, how do you connect to that? Now, one of the things I can say that the methodology I use. So, for example, 2011, this is the first course I'm doing at IIT Madras. Only the model and the keywords were there. We did not do the detailing yet. Course had started, luckily. So all I did was I printed the model, laminated it because it needs to stand for 4.5 months, gave it to them, and I used the method of knowledge by identity, not that high, but the methodology of that, which means directly connect, okay? So that is the principal method that I've used across these 9 years of taking this work to different people. And of late, especially in the last, this year, I've been finding that it's becoming easier and easier to be able to do this with many people, to be able to directly connect. And I'm finding the virtual medium becoming more easy, more effective for this for some strange reason. So what is the consciousness of the deeper self? Something within is guiding. Let's say we can use any terminology, but the methodology that I have taken when I took the work and I'm taking the work is going beyond words, tasting the experience, and then understanding it, validating through a dialogue, verification through a dialogue, going deeper. This is the method I have also used to go deeper. So when we place our inner gaze, for example, in the heart region, we first come in terms of the surface heart, the heart of emotion, so to say, which is the heart which is connected with the world, other people, etc. And it is always interchanging. It is drawing in the emotions, energies, sadness, happiness of everybody. So I've also been deeply benefited by my guide, Dr. Vandana, with whom I've been taking guidance for the last 11 years. So one thing she has insisted is, Arul, when you go within any part, your gaze has to be neutral. Your gaze has to be neutral, because if it gets locked into that experience, you can't penetrate, there'll be no healing, no transformation. So the methodology I've used when I share this work with others as a facilitator or a coach or whatsoever is I've used the tool of natural breath. Drop into natural breath. There are so many breath works, but something about the natural breath, watching it, drops you into the present moment and gives you a certain neutrality. So if I can drop within into my surface heart, I come into the layer of my emotional space. The pluses and the minus, the past memories are also locked in. But if I can move my inner gaze further, deeper than that, you come to a region which somewhat has these properties: silence, a little bit, vastness, quietness, and something like a chant, something like an aspiration, something like a flame. Now, one of the things that I've been particular when I work with people is, do not just start imagining, because you can easily think that you're putting your attention in the depth of your heart and start imagining a flame and start imagining something, which is fine, but it will not give you the true taste. So when you drop with your inner gaze within, you come in touch with a consciousness which has any of these properties that I mentioned. And when you stay with that, stay with that, stay with that, you identify and unite more with that consciousness within the depth of the heart, it comes forward. So this is one of the things I've been doing and sharing. The other poise of the deeper self is to learn to place our awareness above our thought region. And the major clue on this I got from the book On Education by the mother. I don't remember the page, but she really talks about how to go upstairs, into the mind and wait there for visitors to come in. This description is there. Even around 2008, 2009, I saw it and I was very fascinated. Later on, I could figure the method out. Place your inner gaze above your thought, and then you will come to a little bit of a silence, a little bit of a quietness. So this, the kids easily get it, so, sometimes I do it two ways. Place your inner gaze above the mind, above the thoughts, till it becomes a little quieter. Or place your attention above your head. In agenda, mother's agenda, she talks about it. Place your awareness few inches above the head and just leave it wide and open, pointed upwards. This method is there in the second book, The Flame Within, as I have been exploring one-to-one with many people. And slowly, by that poise, your inner gaze connects to the consciousness which is already present. And by the process of osmosis, slowly that starts coming into you, into your thoughts, in your own time. It's a very simple, natural, organic process. By the way, the process of osmosis, we are all very familiar. Anybody who's learned art, you do it by copying the teacher. The teacher does a dance step, you copy it. The teacher sings a phrase, you copy it. Chanting is different from singing. A teacher utters a sloga as a chant. Exact pronunciations are very important. She or he says, you copy it, suddenly you go inside. You feel something else inside that sloka, or that dance step, because you're getting in touch with the inner depth of the experience behind that form, behind that sloga. So this is the same method of connecting to something till that penetrates into us. Okay, so this is these are the two methods I have shared widely with in terms of connecting with the deeper self. I've also done it in corporates. Just to give you an example, 2 years back, there was a pharmaceutical multinational which called me for a 90-minute session as part of the 3-day retreat. There were 60 people. I took them through the whole process. You can also do it in a large group because the method is natural. Or actually, this works better in a group rather than just 1 or 2 people. Because when collectively people put their attention above their mind or head, you get in touch with the consciousness there and it slowly comes in. I want to now move in a little bit into the parts of being, which has been extremely useful to make it into a very practical way of the holistic development of the individual. So in a very simple way, the parts of being is what we refer as PVMS, physical, vital, mental, and spiritual. I've given the 2 voices of the spiritual. So I'll go a little bit into the details, whatever time permits here. So when you take physical and body, it's a complete research area by itself. And the 2 books which are phenomenally useful for me to get some tiny clues, one is Savitri and the other is Mother's Agenda. Now, if you take the body, and I'm going to share the work that we've been doing, in the programs and groups. Become aware, put your inner gaze within the body, which means what? Into the substance, into the flesh, into the bones, into the fluids there. This is the first poise of putting our attention within the body. Now, this is a very rich repertoire, the body. The left side of the body, the quality is not the same as the right side of the body most often, So you place your attention within the body, you will encounter its properties: stress, free, relaxed, pain. And again, the principle that Dr. Vandana taught, keep your awareness within in a neutral way, which means even if the pain is there, don't lose yourself into it, but don't exit the body itself, because then you can't heal, you can't transform. Be within, be within. Next, you can go deeper, drop in deeper into the body's awareness. If you are just there for a while, you also then get in touch with the energetic part of the body. You can refer it to as the chakras, or you could just refer it to the energetic space. For example, when you drop into the heart, you also get in touch with the energy of the emotions. If you drop into the pelvic region, for example, pelvic is not just about sexual activities or the excretory activities. It's actually a sacred space. Then you get into the energy. What is the energetic property of the pelvic region or the heart region, so to say? And then when you drop further deeper into the body, somewhat these 2 are coming. You get in touch with the potentiality of the body, that particular part. The pelvic or the heart or the navel center, you get in touch with the potentiality or the core aspiration there, and then you unite and unite and unite. And from there, you can place your awareness above your head or within the cave of the heart, and you wait there for healing or transformation to occur. This is a simple way of becoming aware of the body's consciousness and opening it to the properties of vastness. So one of the properties that exists above the mind is vastness, wideness, calm, peace. Slowly it comes in its own time. Okay, this is about the body. When it comes to the senses, it's a delightful space. The limiting condition of the senses is narrow, like a hooking mechanism, and it is rather unconscious. But when the senses, you truly go within the senses, it starts widening. You connect to the sounds of the birds, you connect to the vastness, you connect to the sky, you connect to the leaves and flowers. The senses starts widening and widening and widening, and within it comes properties like joy, properties like you can invoke beauty into it, you can invoke aesthetic sense into it. The consciousness or the property of the senses itself shifts. Like if we talk about integral education and if we talk about schools and colleges, the major problem that students are facing happens to be in the domain of the senses. I don't need to go into the details. Many of us know it. So the solution needs to come at the senses level. And in an addiction, the senses is hooked and narrow. But when your awareness goes within, drops within, the property or the consciousness of the senses itself becomes different. It starts choosing things that are beautiful, vast and wide, and it becomes open by itself, which means the property of the senses itself is shifting. Then the person's behavior, psychological nature, which comes on the outside, also shifts. Then we have the dynamic energy space, the navel center or the central vital, as it's referred in the integral yoga. It's another beautiful domain of inner power. Okay? Even if you place your hand on your navel, and if you were to keenly be aware, you will feel a force or a pressure either emitting outward or moving in, depending on the condition of your navel center. So here again, you bring your awareness in right into the force, right into the will. And when you're within, and then you connect, let's say, to the space consciousness above or the space in the depth of the heart, what I described as the silence or the core aspiration, and allow this to mold and transform by itself. The heart I briefly described. When we go to the mind, we say that there are three parts of the mind. The center of the communication, the word, the data mind, the idea force or the creative mind, and the integrative or the pure mind, which can look at the essences, form and essences. Now, once again, the majority of the world is living data-based, past-centered, filled with memories. That's how we are living. Now, that's the whole domain of thoughts and the movements of the thoughts. Now, if you learn to just, let's say do a breath watch or through some kind of a practice, where you're standing back, then slowly the inner gaze can stand back from this movement of thoughts. And now you have a choice to place your awareness above or open your awareness. So the pure mind or the integrative mind can catch the essence of something. And I'll give you an example. This I teach parents and teachers. The child likes dancing. Dancing is a form. Okay. Now, what exactly the child likes about dancing is the essence of it. He or she may like the dancing because of the creative movement, or because of the beauty, or because of something else. Capturing or spotting. So one of the things to build as a facilitator of integral education is your capacity to spot the core of the other. The core of the other and the parts of being operating, how it is operating. So when you place your awareness like that above the thought, and then you start developing the capacity to gather essence. You read a subject, what is the essence of the subject? You read a method, what is the essence of the method? You're in a profession, you have many methodologies of doing your tasks, but what is the essential principle? What is the pulse of the work? The mind can grasp, and the deeper self can also know it intuitively. Okay, so in the remaining, how many more minutes I have, Vladimir? Can you guide me on that so that I can tune in like that?
Yes, you still have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay, great. Okay. So I want to now talk a little bit on the discovery of the core, which I think is a very important and essential process in the integral education. Mother has referred the process of individuation. You individuate first before you are able to offer something. So what is individuation? It's the process of finding out who are you, what's your core nature, what's your core purpose. Okay. Now, after doing this work, I've been doing for 25 years. From the beginning, I was guiding people to find their purpose. Of late, it's coming easy, and it's also easy to share. The discovery of the core is very simple. Whatever the child is resonating to, intrinsically and naturally, you have a gold mine within. So whatever the child is resonating, from the form, go to the essence. The essence gives an indication of the core nature of the child or the purpose that the child is resonating, or it could be an adult also. So for example, you sit and talk with a child, the child says, I like my uncle. Okay, what do you like about your uncle? I like the way he speaks. Okay, what do you exactly like? Well, I like the fact that, he's brave. He can voice something on its own. So when you go to the qualitative details of it, and you notice that the child is coming alive in the presence of that, then you can get a clue on the core nature of the child. Where is the will of the child going or the adult going? What is the person resonating to? And through that, you find the purpose. So for example, if a child likes the field of doctor, wants to become a doctor, wants to become an engineer, wants to become a teacher, you go back and find out what exactly about that is resonating. What is the key resonance? What is the connection that the child is having there? And you help the child or the adult to get in touch with something deeper, which belongs to the core. Okay. Now, to kind of try and summarize the key method that I have been sharing, and now we are doing this course called Coaching with Depth. More than 80 people have been sharing so far with this methodology so that they can go ahead and do it in whichever fields that they are in. And the key thing here is direct observation. We have to learn to directly observe within us how our parts of being are functioning. If I had an experience once of going above and experiencing peace, and I'm recalling it by memory, it is not so potent. This moment, whatever I place my attention, and even if I get 1% of whatever I accessed earlier, it is still potent because a living channel is open. That to me is consciousness work. Consciousness work is a direct connection with the space above the head, which is the intuitive zone, the space in the depth, which is the flame that is guiding, the Agni inside us. But not only that, the parts of being are important because every part is also governed by a God, by a divine. Even within that, I can drop in. But in my humble understanding, the body is extremely important. When you do this whole process by keeping the body in your awareness, and you're able to drop from the body into the pelvic region, into the navel, into the heart, into the throat, first into the substance, into the energy and its sheer potentiality, the channels are open and we are establishing a living connection with consciousness. So that's my humble sharing for the day. Thank you, Vladimir. Back to you.
Thank you very much. It was wonderful. I think there are already questions coming up about Swabhava and Swadharma, and I already anticipate your answers onto this because these are related topics. How to find your inner nature, your innermost, so to say, search in this manifestation, what you like, what you're looking for in different people, in different disciplines, in different movements, and that would be the leading kind of power or leading consciousness power, which would result in many ways how we are dealing with reality and our professions and why we choose those or these professions, what we are looking in those professions for. And that would be a very beautiful exposition. Thank you, Arul. Wonderful presentation. And now I would like to give microphone to Manoj and to address the audience. Manoj, please take your lead.
Thank you, Vladimir, and thank you, Arul. Arul has already laid out the details of observation and individualization. So I would like to start off from there because I work with young people who are 18 plus and up to 30. In my observation, that's a period when you have the accelerated movement of individualization. And when there is a right guidance at that time, there is a very high chance of the person finding their Swadharma. So we run a course called Swadharma. It is to help the youngsters to find their true calling. And So what we look for in the participant is the glimpses of the fire. That is, do they have some self-drive or a seeking? And are they kind of revolting against the existing systems? Are they unsatisfied with what is going on? Or are they just confused and lost or lazy? So we look for the fire element, that intensity of certain seeking. They may not have answers. They may appear to be confused, but as long as there is that seeking, they are not satisfied with things as they are. So often we get those who are like just finishing their college, or just about to get into college. They don't want to commit for 4 years, or those who are in the middle of their studies and found that it is not working, or those who finished their studies and joined professional life and they discovered that this is not working for me. Something is wrong. So we look for those people who have that sense that something is wrong and I need to find answer, and they have the drive and willingness to risk. Because the programs that we offer, we say this is not about your career, not about developing a skill and get a job. Nothing about that. It's about finding your true calling. And it's a lifetime journey. And what we can do is give you an initiation on the path. So it begins with the selection process itself. And when the parents contact us, that's a very clear sign that we are getting wrong students. So we say, no, unless the drive comes from the learner, is the learner seeking, then we have a chance. If it is the parent wanting a child to learn, that's a wrong thing. Already you are off the track. And in India, there is this huge problem of over-parenting and not really giving space for children to really bloom. In integral education, very first principle is nothing can be taught. But unfortunately, many people stop at that statement. It's very dramatic, very shocking. The other part of the statement is the knowledge is already there within the learner. And every learner is like a seed having the potential, awaiting the right condition for that potential to awaken and start sprouting and growing. So our task is to create conditions for this awakening. So we look for those who have that potential, readiness. They want to break the shell. They feel that they are somewhere caught up in a shell, just like a seed ready to awaken. Now you find yourself bound by the social conditions, social norms, systems. They just either becoming rebels, or they are a bit confused. They want to search or give up things and look for some renunciation and stuff like that. So we gather these people, and one of the most important thing we found over the years is that creating a condition of safety where they feel safe to open up. And we make it clear to them, you don't have to be smart. It is perfectly okay to be confused, not to know, to be messy, to cry, to break down, and in fact, be ready to break down, be vulnerable. And how do we create a condition where young people come together and can be authentic in expressing themselves? So we have one of the practices called sharing circle. And this is a learning space where you simply listen. It's not a space to dialogue and discuss, but share from your deepest truth, and others simply receive it. And you need not make sense, but learn to express your deepest fears, anxieties, confusions, or insights. So in that process, they begins to connect with each other. They begins to get to know each other. We also have processes by which we map the life journey till then. and really be vulnerable to that process and expose oneself courageously. And we create conditions so that people feel bold enough to express themselves and to bring out the traumas they have gone through. Often when somebody comes to program and say, look, I don't know what to do in life. The career was going well, but then now it's not working. But as we go deeper into the person, then you discover that there was a relationship breakup. Or when we go further deep, when we discover that there are some family issues, there are parental issues, and it goes all the way to their childhood traumas and issues. So how do we create conditions where they can really open up and share? And in that process, also we help them to discern between what Arul referred as the inner guide. There are thoughts streaming through the mind. There are imaginations flowing through the mind. There are emotions rising and falling. There are drives, there are impulses, desires, sensations. So how do we discern all this? And behind all this, there is a quiet inner guidance. How do you trace it? Because this inner guidance is what we need to tap into, the deeper self communicating and connecting with it, because that is from where you can really source your true authentic power. Unless you gain your soul force and liberate the soul force, you cannot really have the power to break open the shell and start growing in your own way and sprout your roots and bring out your fresh leaves. So we have processes to help them to understand what are your values that are on one hand inherited from society, but in contrast to that, what are your soul values? How do you identify? And if you are able to stand up for your values, you also gain strength, you gain the power of your truth. So from values, it goes to the soul force. How do you identify what type of soul force is acting through you? Are you a wisdom type, strength type, or are you a harmony type, or a perfection type? There are perfectionists who get lost in the details of perfection and forget about time, and they are concerned about hands-on detailed perfection in work. Then there are harmonizing type who are very good in bringing together people and harmonize things. And there are strength type who are people of warriorhood who can cut through and lead groups, and they are naturally gifted in that domain. Then there are wisdom type who are excellent in domains of knowledge, research, and finding new truth. So what is your type? So helping youngsters to understand by tracing backward into their life journey, what are the signs showing what type of soul force is awakening in you, or what are you gifted with, and what are the talents that are inborn, because that potential also come not only with that force that will carry you forward, but the knowledge and skills, because there are skills that are inborn. Like poets are born, they are not created in a college. As similarly, artists, real entrepreneurs are really born like that. These are not things that we create in a college. In college, in universities, we can polish them. But what type are you? What are your authentic values? How do you bring forth these things? And how do you observe? How do you discern that inmost guide? So all this done in a space of safety, deep listening, and peer-to-peer learning. We say we are not teachers. We are learning along with you. And it's just that we are creating these conditions for you. We hold space for you. But breaking the shell, you have to do it yourself, so that you find your authentic strength, your authentic voice. And in that process, the mess comes out first. Because the moment you become authentic and start looking inward and start opening up, then all the emotional confusions, hurts, traumas, pains, everything comes up. Family issues shows up. So broken families shows up. sexual abuses shows up, physical abuses shows up, and all the challenges that they cannot otherwise express. Then, of course, in this age group, sex, relationship, these play a major role. So addressing these issues and being very, very authentic about it, and also putting them in touch with those who are already living that fire of inspiration, that those who are living their swadharma, living from that truth and creating their own fields. So putting them in touch with such people, and Auroville provides that context. We have hundreds of people exploring their own swadharma and doing immensely creative work in a small place with tremendous diversity. So putting them in touch with these people creates magic. That's where they realize, look, I can also do this. And this guy started when they were in their 20s. By the time they are in their 40s, they have accomplished so much, and they are so passionate, even if they don't have money or they are struggling, they are in a battlefield, but they are doing it joyfully and discovering themselves and creating new possibilities for everyone. And that really shifts. And we tell our students, there are no textbooks. This program doesn't have textbook. You have to learn from life. You are the textbook. You must learn to read yourself, your own mind, your own heart, your own body. What is the language your body is speaking? What's the language your heart is speaking? What's the language your energy is speaking? What is your mind speaking? So how do you address and understand these languages? So we have journaling every day to understand, and there are specialized forms of journaling that help them to process the day and identify the insights that are arising. Insights are the moments when they are going beyond knowledge to understanding, or new patterns are discovered. And that's where also the inspiration comes. So insight comes with inspiration. And how do you convert an inspiration into action? So we convert their insights into action plan. Now, can you convert? What will you do differently in your life? Physically, what you do differently? Emotionally, what you do differently? Mentally, what you do differently? How you design your own learning journey based on your own insights. And to get more insights into oneself, for example, we ask them to take an inventory of their own luggage, what they come with, because that is a symbolic representation of what they are carrying. Why they carry what they carry, what is the consequence of carrying this particular clothing, what it is made of, what is the environmental consequence to it, who benefits, and what is the psychological reason why you bought this. So what they carry become the objects to study and learn from. And there you know how you're plugged into the society and larger economic system. So they know that if I'm buying this, I'm supporting this type of production and consumption system. If I'm buying another thing, I'm supporting something else. So this is how you link with the larger social context. And then you relate to those who are really working, following their own authentic truth. So that inspiration transference and self-awareness together forms the context for designing their own life's transformational practices. And this is highly individualized. Each individual designs their own transformational practice. There is no cookie cutter solution. So we help them to identify and design transformational practices for each individual, and designing it in alignment with their own inmost truth that is arising. And we tell them, don't plan for a career for your lifetime. Right now, all that we can do is, how do you take baby steps? That means you plan short projects, get it done. And it is in doing you discover more complexity within yourself. So the doing space become more and more important. And this is one of the biggest challenges young people are facing. They are filled with ideas, filled with knowledge. Our education system largely deals with the development of knowledge, the faculty of knowing, but not the faculty of doing, nor the faculty of feeling, nor the underlying being. So we have being expressing itself through knowing, doing, and feeling. And there are corresponding skill sets to be developed. And we look at the being level. How do you create self-awareness, self-drive, self-confidence? at a knowing level, thinking skills, analytical skills, planning skills, design thinking, all that. At a feeling level, empathy, emotional connection, and ability to really listen and feel love and trust. And at a physical level, know your body's resilience, flexibility, sensitivity. So we have programs of like body awareness to come in touch with the body so that your body itself become a doorway to understand what's going on. When they eat, eating of the food itself is a space to learn. Similarly, every interaction is a space to learn. And it's a 5-week long immersion program. They live together, they learn from each other, and we insist don't sit around in groups and chat and waste your energy, but connect deeply with people. And more than 50% of their learning come from each other. They teach each other. Rather, teaching is not the right word. They share, and from there they learn. And everybody feels that we are all naked and honest and truthful. So it is okay to be messy, and everyone shares their messy journey. And from there, they gain the strength, become the tribe and learning tribe. And they have projects that they do. And so in that space, they test, okay, this seems to be an intuition that is arising from my deepest inner guide. But unless I test it out, I don't know whether it is true or not. So we bring them into the doing space, where the moment you get into an action space, then various parts of being shows up with its own resistance and with its own challenges. One part of your being may be ready, but another part may not be ready. So this internal resistance shows up. So then we bring in the challenge. Look, internal resistance is your golden opportunity to break through. So that means you are beginning to make a shift. So there is the fears, anxieties showing up. Now, concentrate. We have regular concentration practices to bring in that internal silence and to listen to oneself and have the courage to persist and persevere. And so in that doing space is where breakthroughs happen, breakdowns happen, and the exhilaration of doing small things and discovering that, wow, I can do that. And there comes the confidence, the will develops, and that emotional blockages opens up. That means your energies are free to flow. And then the early childhood talents and passions begins to show up and say, I want to now do flute and want to play this, I want to do that. Okay, you practice this, you try to do that. And people get on to their path, and we tell them, look, don't look at the future in terms of existing careers. Drop all that. You can combine things in extreme ways. Whatever be your interest field you combine, you will get completely new professions that are non-existent in today's world. So don't look at the world in terms of existing professions, but you create your own profession. That doesn't exist. Have the courage. So we are opening up that inner door so that the force awakens and the fire is awakened, kindled. And you say, now you're on the path. You walk on your own, but it is going to be a messy journey. You will have challenges. So we are still in touch with even our first batch. We have the learning community. They support each other. And what we are looking at is a lifelong journey, lifelong relationship. And 5 weeks is only an initiation. And relationships continue. The problems, as they go out, you really confront the challenges, old buddies of laziness, confusion, and social pressures. Everything shows up, and how you confront it. So these are the spaces where they really confront reality and confront limitations, and sometimes get into a deep fall into further confusion. But you need to cut through. Once you taste your authenticity, once you taste your true creative force and power and delight of your being, even if you fall into pits of confusion and depression, you know that you must get back, because that force will call you back. So they find their way, or they connect with each other. And we are creating communities, that learning groups. That is where the peer learning become extremely important. They support each other, learn from each other. And that is when they also begins to question, okay, I want to read, and now I want to understand. I know the process. I'm beginning to understand what is going on, but I need more mental clarity. So what is integral education? What are the books I can read? What is Sri Aurobindo saying? What is Mother saying? What is spirituality? These questions begins to arise. That is when we say, okay, maybe you read that book or this book or that. Reading starts later, self-driven reading based on their own inner calling and need of the hour. But primary learning is by doing. And in that doing space, you learn through your body. So Auroville provides a great opportunity for these youngsters as a field of experimentation of a tremendous freedom and tremendous diversity, meeting incredibly diverse, rich, crazy people who are doing crazy things, and that inspires them a lot. And we have also experimented now the similar process online and extended it to another context, working in an online way. Those who are more keen on their inner development, and we found it worked the same way. You create learning, a safe space where they can share, they can learn from each other, peer learning group, and you find ways to inspire them, bring things to do, self-observation and action space where they discover their limitations, cut through the boundaries, persist, take up a project that has timelines, and you walk through and break through, and it really works. And each one has a unique learning journey, a unique process, a unique context. So as Sri Aurobindo's three principles says, you must consult the learner. Similarly, there is near to far. The person is a context. They have a social context. There is a context of the soul's evolution and their particular stage where they are. And accordingly, it has to be customized so that they find their authentic truth and walk the path courageously and find their strength to be their satyam, rhythm, and expand into their brihat, the vastness. So in that comes the courage to surrender, trust the universe, and trust the process, and to know that when you fall, it is temporary. And you always wake up and you get up and get help, and you can always ask for help. And we are muddling our way through, and it is okay to be messy. And it is fantastic, and I really enjoy and happy to really connect with young people, their creativity and their spontaneity and their deep commitment to the journey. And it really keeps me young, and that's one of the key things about Auroville Charter, a place of unending education and youth that never ages. It is this constant learning that keeps us young and fresh and open, and that gives us the joy of learning and that inner delight. And we also help the people to understand what is that source of delight and how it degenerates if you don't take care of your instruments. So then they become serious about taking care of their instrumental nature. Then they want to stop smoking or drugs or this or that because they understand this is ruining my instrumental nature. I have to stop it now. Not because of any external compulsion, but they understand. Now I have to take care of these instruments. I have to design my practice. I need to walk my truth. That's where it is, and open to questions and share.
Thank you, Manoj. Wonderful. It reminds me of the purpose of Auroville, actually, yes. To create your own profession and to follow your own heart. That means Auroville had to be a space, was designed to be a space where you could discover yourself through any activity. Activities are not for, earning your livelihood or making career or something of that kind. It was meant to be educational, for you to discover yourself more and more and deeply connect with your inner being and inner values. And they are definitely absolutely unique Though you have types of knowledge, power, and so on, but types are not really describing the whole unique situation of the soul, of that Swabhava. And that uniqueness which you emphasize, it's very, how to say, inspiring, because for youngsters, that is the only thing that you take them seriously, that you accept them as they are, so they can do the journey and not you for them tell them what they have to do. It's beautiful. Thank you for this exposition. You are very complimentary together. It seems that like you worked together on this project. Wonderful. So we are opening to the question and answer session now. We are totally on time. It's marvelous. So there are 10 questions here. If you see them, some of them I may voice to you, because maybe it will be easier. You can click on this and see for yourself if I am not covering something. So the first question, which is put here, is from Ramachandra Raju. In an existing school or college setting, how can we bring the integral education framework? Do they need to completely switch to this orientation? It's a very provocative question. So who would like to answer it? Arul, maybe you, because you are from there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the work I've been doing for 11 years now largely has been with many schools and colleges. Some there and others they come. So see, the whole thing, what even Manoj shared or what I shared, is very fundamental. So when we go to the fundamental, and even Sri Aurobindo, like, much of the works, if you really go in, lays the foundation and then goes deeper. So the question of really switching orientation, see, there's a difference between form and essence. And also, one of the most important things in integral education, in my view, is practice, or what is called sadhana. So if you go to the essence of what, let's say, both of us have been sharing, or more people who are doing this work, you could bring it into practically any situation. Many of the people I'm interacting with are from Montessori, are from Rudolf Steiner, are from, Desikachari, Krishnamachari, many different fields. And it doesn't matter, because it is a vast thing that we are looking at. So it's not about any switching, or it's more about adding to the depth in terms of either understanding it or experiencing it, which comes from the practice. So that is my personal view. I've actually not had this trouble at all, and that is one of the reasons I've made it into very simple English words. So for example, the dynamic energy is called the central vital. So when I take it to the normal people, I just say this is the domain of dynamic energy, so that one truly tastes it, and then they go into the consciousness of that. So this difficulty doesn't exist if we take it into the real sense of the universality of these things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There is another question here. What is Swadharma and what is Swabhava? How to relate these key ideas for diagnosis work on the consciousness? It's from Alok Mohanty. I think it is for Manoj.
So dharma comes from the inmost being. You are born with certain work cut out for you. Like you are like a seed that has come with certain potential. You either become a rose or a sunflower or a jackfruit, or you are different types. So there is a dharma that is unique to you. You're born with it. You are meant to do that. And there is a rhythm of its unfolding. So that is where the dha and dharma comes. You have something to unfold. You carry within you something that is to be unfolded. Now, Subhava is where the soul forces come into the picture, the diversity of different expression. For example, you are meant to do something in the field of, say, agriculture, farming. So if you are, say, a wisdom type, you will be looking at agriculture and farming from a research perspective. There is this knowledge about the ecosystem, and there is the whole harmony of nature, and your farm is a lab where you are learning and students are coming, and you are nurturing not only the plants and the students, everything. You are bringing wisdom into them, and you are also learning from that. You may be writing about it. But if you're a strength type, for you the farming is a social transformative action, where there is the farming happening with it going into the hands of Monsanto and all kinds of corporates, and we need to have freedom and political freedom, and farming is a message to liberate people and to become independent, food sufficiency, independent social movement. So for you, it's a means for social transformation, and you are into policy, action, activism, and farming is the means for it. But if you are a harmony type, that is your Swabhava, and then you will be looking at how do you optimize resources, harmonize resources, and produce wealth of food for all, welfare of all in abundance. On the other hand, if you're a perfection type, you really love your plants and you love to do hands-on planting and harvesting, and perfection in its manifestation of beauty, physical order, harmony, beauty, everything. You are a very, very hands-on person, happy to day in and out work with your hands. So that is like, according to Swabhava, no matter what field uh, you are, you will do different things, you solve things differently. So that's the difference between the Swadharma and Swabhava. Swabhava orients you the certain way you solve it.
Wonderful. Yes, it's very, very interesting, your answer. Yes. It doesn't matter in which field you are, whatever profession you have, if your Swabhava is leading you to knowledge, you can be a teacher who wants to serve, and then you will be at service of the community, or you can be a harmonizer, you can be a learner, researcher, constantly researching with your students, learning yourself, that is the man of wisdom and knowledge. Or you can be a leader, and providing leadership, teaching everybody how to lead themselves. So, and you are a teacher, so that's why we have so many different teachers in the school, different types. The same in every field. So profession is not really locking you down. It just creates a context in which you can express that Swabhava. Thank you. Thank you, Manoj. Beautiful answer. There are more questions. So people want to know about the courses also, and that is to Arul, that you have been talking about a course. Can we get the details? And also to Manoj, you are running courses. So please inform the people. There are several questions about the courses and how to come in touch with you.
I think the most simplest is you could write. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. My email ID is aruldev, an additional V at the end, at gmail.com. Aruldev, an additional V at the end, at gmail.com. I could write that.
Yeah, you can actually put it into chat for everyone if you want, so everybody would have your email. Just type it out there in the chat for everyone, for attendees and panelists, so they will have the link. And Manoj, how to come?
Yeah, I run. There is one course called Swdharma that happens twice a year. That is for the age group 18 to 30. It happens in Auroville. There is another course called Swadhyaya. There is no age limit to it. It is online. It is open to anybody. And in addition, we are about to launch this month another course called Prayoga. That will be a 12-week course. Will be online, and for how to apply these principles. How do you learn by doing in your own context? And we are also, these are the three possibilities as of now. and more details can be found at our website, aci.auroville.org.
Mm. Could you please type it out for people because they may not hear properly? Just in the chat that the reference, and send to all the panelists that they will see it. Thank you. There are more questions, and I will look into them now. First of all, thank you. This is from Siegfried from Auroville. Oh no, it's not from Spain. It's our friend from Spain. First of all, thank you for generosity of this meeting. I would like to know if in integral education they use techniques from the performing arts, such as theater exercises, to represent situations in a role-playing format, so that young people understand their emotions and conflicts, which are the same as others. So if you have some information on it, please share.
Yeah, we have a theater person in our team, and it is an integral part of our program, in order to work with the emotions and energies and connect with that deeper layers and bring it out. We have extensive theater utilization in the learning program. We also use art, painting, role playing, all that.
Thank you. There is another question from Alok Mohanty. Nature and nurture are it jumps a minute because there are more people. Nature and nurture are molded by evolutionary spark that wants to evolve further. It has past samskaras playing out. How to discover Purushas within who help in mapping the sanskaras of body, emotions, and mind. Yeah. Arul, would you like to answer this? About sanskaras from the past?
Yeah, so I'll tell you maybe currently what is occurring on this in my understanding, and an experimentation that I'm doing with a small group right now. The coaching with depth is the greatest experiment I'm doing now in this area. So a bunch of people finished the 9 months, and they're going into the level 2, 9 months. So when we began this just a month back, the intuitively, and I think it was seeded by one of the participants. How do we really go beyond? How do we really deeply look at cause and effect? In that sense of it, because as coaches, facilitators, teachers, and parents, we're all bounded. Even when we try to solve something, this is coming from this is coming from that, and sometimes you go on a never-ending loop. So the intuition or the inquiry right now is, can we be so much into the present moment that we go beyond, this cause and effect loop that is going on, and we're still working our heads around it. But the clue that I'm having is what I described at the body level. Body, energy, and then drop into the potentiality. Today evening, again, when I was taking a walk, because I was part of another session today, and I took an evening walk to catch the sun a little bit, and I was doing the same thing with the mind. I think going very deep, within each part, let's say the mind or the emotion, you really go to the beingness, of that, which can stand, but yet show its true property and potentiality, which is beyond the surface, cause and effects and all that. Not that this will just go away by itself like that, but that's not really the point. But getting in touch with this potentiality, and then from there, acting on this seems important. And very interestingly, the first clue I got this from a Christian nun last year when I was doing some work, and we were working with the body and the parts of being. And she said, Arul, when I go deeper, I'm able to sense the core aspiration of the part. That was the time when I was actually writing the Flame Within book. So that inquiry led me to the aspiration. But even more deeper seems to be, let's say, take the mind or the emotion or the senses or the body, drop within, we seem to come to a core potentiality of it. I'll just give you an example to keep it practical. The pelvic region, which is a mystery actually for me more and more now. When somebody drops in deep, I have seen that they get in touch with an extraordinary power. extraordinary light, extraordinary vast creativity. And it seems to differ from person to person, but this seems to somewhat indicate the potentiality. And this person I'm referring to had years and years and years of difficulty, many years. But yet, when the person dropped in deep, there was an absolute connection with the state of beingness of that particular part. And then working on the surface becomes easier. This is what I'm discovering in the one-to-one practices. We can share more later on this, but this is my current understanding.
Wonderful, thank you. There is one more question. There are several more. For Manoj, I have grown up with a traditional education system. When I listened to you, I felt this is the way I should have been educated. What can I do now? I have crossed the age of 40.
It's a perfect time. There are two crisis points in life. One is the quarter life crisis, that is in your early 20s, and second is midlife crisis in your 40s. So it's a great window of opportunity, and it's never too late. And one need to just gather strength and jump.
Maybe you can add to this the idea of unending education, which we have in Auroville, what it means, what it implies actually.
Yeah, it is also a good time in the sense you have to a certain extent done with the basics, money, sex, family, all these things. Usually by 40, you have had your sufficient experience and you're looking for something deeper. So there is certain maturity and readiness. And so in that sense, in Indian system, we have this brahmacharya, garhastya, vanaprastha, sannyasa. These stages have been identified where we are actually beginning our true inner work and growth in our 40s. So
Yeah.
if we are willing to have that courage to accept and drop the current existing social norms and see that I'm just beginning my learning journey and look for those doorways where one can connect with the delight of life and that creative force that awakens, the inspiration that comes. And we use this process of following the trails of delight. So even for dealing with obstacles in life, if you focus on the obstacles, you will not find energy to cut through. But if you focus on what inspires you and tune into it, go after it, you will find the necessary inner force and strength to cut through all the difficulties, and you will find your way. And it's really a fantastic time, the 40s.
Thank you, Manoj. You know what mother said when she was 80? She said that now I am ready to live. Finally, I acquired enough material wisdom to just live fully life. So it's never late. 40 is a good time to start. There are more questions here. How can we develop consciousness for conflict resolution in adolescence? That is a very interesting question. Consciousness for conflict resolution in adolescence. Who would like to answer?
I didn't get the full context, but yet, I will
How
try.
can we develop the consciousness which would be kind of consciousness for conflict resolution in adolescence? How to resolve our conflicts?
Yeah,
What consciousness do we have to resolve our conflicts? How to develop that consciousness?
So the way I've deployed when I work with youngsters and adults is from a understanding of the part of being. So for example, if there is a conflict, the conflict could be arising from the part of being, which is either senses or emotion, or it could just be the clouded, mind without clarity. So we trace back a little bit, so there is a conflict on the outside, but where is it stemming from? It could be the mind or the emotion or the senses. And then from the entangled state of that, it could be the mind or the emotion again, from the entangled state, when you bring in more awareness, awareness is simply is placing your awareness within that, or when you purify or develop it and you open it out a little bit, by itself, the consciousness comes forward, or whatever is that part for you, for that particular person, whatever is that potentiality starts coming forward. This is the method that I have deployed.
Yeah. There is a question from Shruti Jain. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. I'm working with age group 11 and 15 years old. I come across children who need support and help to identify and realize their future path of learning. Sometimes they are not able to connect with the teaching learning processes. Certainly, there are a lot of reasons behind that. Are there any workshops for young children and their parents to deal with such situations? Please suggest.
But I'll take this question.
Great.
For 3 years, I've been doing this experiment called Beyond Schooling. So this is basically from 5th standard onwards. We allow people even with 10th, 11th standard to come in. So the experiment was going on in the office as far as lockdown didn't occur. From lockdown, I've converted it into weekly sessions online. I'm every Thursday, but now I'm going to move it to Monday. For 1 hour and 10 minutes, the students just come together and we explore whatever I've shared with you so far. My humble understanding is the individuation process is beginning when the child is entering the 5th standard with at least about 60%. So when they are getting this method, and I do it just the way we do it for adults facilitation, give them a free space, they can explore whatever they want, but we just bring this framework. So in case you're interested, I've already put my email ID on the chat. You can reach out, I'll send you. So the two pieces is coaching with depth. We are teaching everybody who's interested to take this work forward, but we have created a specialization under it called parenting with depth. So 2 people who have gone through the program, they are anchoring it. So we can send you the details if you reach out. But the goal is that, like for example, Padma Shishatri in Chennai, before the lockdown began, started roping me in for all the 6th standard students. And we were addressing the key difficulties that they have, but more from a parts of being, more from a core angle. So they are really receiving it. Like even if I go to a classroom where it is noisy, students will talk, etc. And if there are 60 people, more than 25, 30 people, you can actually see it in their eyes. They really long for something like this. It's not that it is difficult, nor it is not that they will have resistance. My experience is the opposite. They love it, but you'll have to do it that way. So for example, if I do the natural breath with them, like in the office, one boy in a few seconds, he will bend this side, that side. He will even lie down on the floor. He'll come and sit behind me. All that is allowed. And when you explore it in that sense of it, really they are blossoming. And I think we can start that young.
Thank you, Arul. There is a question to Manoj. How to find out more about the program you shared, Manoj?
It is there on our website.
Mm-hmm.
The links to the specialized website as well as case study. For example, Sodharma case study, there is a document available on our website. So that will give sufficient information. Also, there are videos available.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And there is another question here, how to balance need of livelihood survival, managing common society pressures for survival, and urge of inner growth, finding authenticity at physical, emotional, mental level. Just exploring one plane, that is emotions, trauma, childhood patterns, can be a vast mine and having to manage so much pressures, resistance, both from inside, outside, and outside. Oneself and outside.
Yeah, I
So,
can.
yeah, go ahead.
The note itself is loaded, with so
Sure.
much of challenges of life in that sense of it. See, one of the things I have figured out is, see, I run a business. From the beginning, I had to fend for myself. The time needed for inner practice is huge. So what I figured out doing was, in the beginning, say for example, when I did Vipassana, I used to sit for an hour. If it's a holiday, I'll sit for 2 hours. Later on, I started doing an experiment for the last 15 years. All my practice, I do it with eyes open. I do it during my walk time. I'll do it in the bathroom. I'll do it when I'm on the computer. Most of the practices, what I'm sharing, I do it while I'm working with the activities. Because when I was doing my Vipassana, what I noticed was I used to practice it very well. But I used to behave like a jerk in certain other areas of my life, and that was not shifting. But when I started these tiny, tiny, tiny practices, 1 minute, 30 seconds, etc., while I'm doing what I'm doing, say, for example, I'm talking to my employee, I'm getting irked, or something in the family, something is disturbing me. Immediately, I put the practice at the emotion level or with a natural breath. Then all of life is integrated. You can actually practice for 12 to 14 to 15 hours a day, little by little by little by little, and it is very transformative.
Thank you, Arul. Yes, as Alok Pandey was joking, India has all the opportunities to practice spirituality. There's so much going on that you have always an opportunity to do it. Yeah? So it's
Yeah,
very true.
this is an idea we keep reinforcing, that spiritual transformational practice is not something that is to be in separate practice that you do, but it is in the very life itself. If you just take very act of eating, that become your transformational space, or act of taking bath, that become your transformational space. It's about any activity is like a container into which we can put consciousness. And as the consciousness enters, it undergoes transformation. It doesn't matter what stage of your life you are, whether you're struggling for survival or doesn't matter what. End of the day, you have to eat, you have to take bath, and you have to do basics of life. And all this is a space for transformational practice. It can be converted. These are just containers waiting for consciousness to illumine and transform.
Yes, thank you, Manoj. There is another question from Shweta Dhareshwar. Can you give guidance on ways to help a kindergarten child to relate to the body and tap their awareness? Also, how do I, as a facilitator, connect more to their individual essence to help nurture in it further? Kindergarten child.
I have not worked
Yeah.
that much, so it won't be authentic if I answer. I have not worked that much.
Yeah, I have also not worked in that space.
But I can share one thing. You know, sometimes when a parent does a practice, especially when the child is that young, the practice of the parent moves into the child by the process of osmosis. So this is much I have seen, but I don't have direct experience.
Yeah, we have an idea to start from the top down, because if you don't have teachers, if you don't educate parents, if parents do not know what they do, then of course they cannot help the child. It's very difficult to find that connection. It's true. Even mother wanted in Auroville to remove children from parents and to put them into the school separated from them, because they have such a influence on them, which is not conducive to the integral development. But that never happened, that project. So to
Yeah,
educate parents, most probably, and teachers, we have first of all to do this job.
yeah.
Yes, education of spirit or soul is termed as the core essence of Sri Aurobindo's integral education. How should we educate school students about soul or psychic being in a simple manner? It's a big question and very difficult to answer. Who would like to take it?
I can share. This is what I shared. Actually, it is not difficult. It is very easy with the students. I can tell you from my experience. It is easier with the students than with the adults. See, you just have to do it like an experiment. You know, when you go to the beach and then you say play, they'll play. Okay, so we should not complicate too much. The method I've done is, that's what I shared in the beginning. Very simple. I'll ask them to place their awareness above the thought or above the head. And when we do it in a group, it's always better because a couple will figure out somehow. And when they share something, then somewhat people get it. Okay. And the other thing is to go deeper in the heart, and just come to a region which is rather quiet. I can tell you from my experience that when I do it in a group of students, including I've done with Tamil speaking, with fishermen children and all that, actually they get it better than the English speaking students because they are already in touch with something that is natural. So it's actually not so difficult. If we complicate it by big words, then it becomes difficult. If you just do it like put your attention there, one way or the other, they'll stumble into it. This is my personal experience.
Thank you, Arul. Yes,
Maybe
wonderful.
I can add that in Auroville there is a program called ATB, Awareness Through the Body. It is using the body and the senses and going inward, sensing subtler layers. This is for children. All children in Auroville go through that learning journey, and it is one of the most impactful uh, course. And even when we talk to those children who are now adults, asking them what was the most impactful, they say it was ATP because that stayed with them. They carry it within their body. The awareness of that inner movement they get to know without necessarily using the word soul or all that explanation. When we remove all the words, when we get into experience, it gets simple.
Thank you. It's a very good answer to that question: how to deal with kids in the kindergarten, how to bring awareness of the body and become aware of oneself, not to be totally dispersed and lost in the context. Very beautiful. Yes, that awareness through the body, which is called now. Before it was called body awareness, which is a very beautiful course. And there is a book written by a local, by the way, so you can read and maybe apply this in your school environment. So there are a few more questions, and we will have to stop here. One more question, the last one. My question is about the education of feelings and the actions and the skills. What is the best way to educate the consciousness of my students for they can obtain good feelings, make good actions, and develop their skills? That is the last question. So what is the way to do it?
I would say like one of the aspects that we give great importance is aesthetic sense. Development of the aesthetic sense helps to come in touch with the feelings, and also music, poetry, all that are very helpful. So these are integrated into their learning process. Plus creating safe space where they can express feeling, come in touch with feelings and deeper feelings. So honoring that without judging and creating spaces where refined feelings are encountered and invoked, and that helps them to internalize it and seek for that more and more.
And I just want to add one thing to it. I think we can all learn, especially at a younger age, to connect to flowers, directly connect to flowers. One is to know about it through what has been written, but directly connecting to flowers at a very felt level opens the feeling, opens the heart, and it's a fantastic healing mechanism. So instead of theoretically, just learning to connect, and allow the flower to reach you with its property and vibration, to something that will be extremely useful if we learn the art of it.
Thank you very much. It was a very wonderful session and very enlightening, all of us. And I see the wonderful feedback for all your wisdom and your work you did over these many years. So I hope we meet again and we share again our experiences in this forum. Thank you very much and wish you all the best. And namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank